The scarred teen was too afraid to attend prom, but when 120 bikers showed up at her door, Lily Chen stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, her trembling fingers lightly tracing the jagged scar that ran from her left temple to her cheekbone. The angry red line, a constant reminder of the cruelty she'd endured, seemed to mock her dreams of a normal high school experience. At 17, Lily should have been excitedly preparing for her senior prom, giggling with friends over dress choices and potential dates. Instead, she stood alone, fighting back tears as she contemplated the daunting prospect of facing her tormentors at what was supposed to be a magical night. The scar was relatively new, only 3 months old. It was the result of a prank gone horribly wrong, or perhaps, as Lily sometimes darkly suspected, gone exactly as planned. Megan Collins and her clique, self-proclaimed queens of Oak Ridge High, had been tormenting Lily since freshman year. But their actions that fateful day in the chemistry lab crossed a line that even they seemed to realize was a step too far. Lily closed her eyes, but the memories flooded in unbidden. The sound of giggling behind her as she carefully measured chemicals for their lab experiment, the sudden jostling of her elbow, causing the beaker of acid to slip from her grasp. The searing pain as the liquid splashed across her face, followed by screams, her own and those of her classmates. In the aftermath, Megan and her friends had tearfully claimed it was an accident, a moment of carelessness. They'd apologized profusely, sent flowers to the hospital. But Lily had seen the look in Megan's eyes just before the accident. Glint of malicious anticipation that haunted Lily's nightmares. A soft knock on the bathroom door jolted Lily back to the present. "Lily, honey, are you okay in there?" Her mother's voice was laced with concern. Lily quickly wiped away the tears she hadn't realized were falling. "I'm fine, Mom. Just fixing my hair." She could almost hear her mother's sad sigh through the door. Grace Chen had been a pillar of strength throughout Lily's ordeal, fighting fiercely for justice and supporting her daughter through the painful recovery process. But even Grace couldn't erase the emotional scars that ran far deeper than the physical one on Lily's face. Taking a deep breath, Lily opened the door. Grace stood there, a mix of love and worry etched on her face. 45, Grace was a striking woman, her own Chinese heritage evident in her delicate features. Features that Lily had inherited, along with her father's height and his warm brown eyes. "Oh, sweetheart," Grace said softly, reaching out to tuck a strand of Lily's long black hair behind her ear. "You look beautiful." Lily managed a weak smile. "Thanks, Mom, but we both know that's not true, not anymore." Grace's eyes flashed with a familiar mixture of anger and determination. "Lily Chen, you listen to me. You are beautiful inside and out. That scar doesn't define you. It's a mark of your strength, of everything you've overcome." Lily wished she could believe her mother's words. But every sideways glance in the school hallways, every whispered comment behind her back, reinforced the belief that she was now an object of pity at best, revulsion at worst. As they made their way downstairs, the smell of brewing coffee filled the air. Robert Chen, Lily's father, was in the kitchen, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he pored over the morning newspaper. 47, Robert's once jet black hair was now peppered with gray, but his kind eyes lit up as he saw his daughter. "There's my prom queen," he said with a smile that didn't quite hide his concern. "Ready for some breakfast?" Lily's stomach churned at the mention of prom. She slid into a chair at the kitchen table, avoiding her father's gaze. "I'm not really hungry, Dad. And I don't think I'm going to prom." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken pain. Grace and Robert exchanged worried glances over Lily's bowed head. "Sweetheart," Robert began gently, "I know you're scared, but prom is a rite of passage. You shouldn't miss out because of what those kids did." Lily's head snapped up, her eyes flashing. "Those kids? Dad, they disfigured me. They've made my life a living hell for years, and now everyone looks at me like I'm a freak. How am I supposed to walk into that gym and pretend everything's okay?" Her outburst was met with stunned silence. It was the most Lily had said about the bullying in weeks. She'd grown increasingly withdrawn since returning to school, barely speaking to anyone outside her immediate family. Grace moved to her daughter's side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Lily, my brave girl, you don't have to pretend anything. But you also don't have to let them win. Going to prom, holding your head high, that would be the ultimate victory. Lily leaned into her mother's embrace, feeling the fight drain out of her. I don't know if I'm strong enough, Mom, she whispered. You are, Robert said firmly, joining his wife and daughter. You're a Chen. We don't back down from bullies, remember? Family motto, one that had served them well over the years, brought a ghost of a smile to Lily's lips. Her parents had always taught her to stand up for herself and others, be proud of her heritage and her individuality. It was a lesson she'd taken to heart, and perhaps part of the reason Megan and her clique had targeted her so relentlessly. As Lily sat there, enveloped in the love and support of her parents, a small spark of defiance ignited in her chest. Maybe they were right. Maybe going to prom facing her fears head-on was the answer. But the thought of walking into that gym alone, facing the stares and whispers without a buffer, sent a shiver of anxiety. I'll think about it, Lily said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Grace pressed a kiss to the top of her daughter's head. That's all we ask, sweetheart. Whatever you decide, we're behind you, 100%. As her parents bustled about the kitchen, trying to tempt her with her favorite breakfast foods, Lily's mind wandered. She thought about the prom dress hanging in her closet. Beautiful emerald green gown she'd picked out months ago, before the accident. She thought about her classmates, already pairing up and making elaborate plans for the big night. And for a brief, shining moment, Lily allowed herself to imagine walking into the prom with her head held high, radiant and unafraid. But as quickly as the image formed, it dissipated, replaced by the all-too-familiar faces of Megan and her friends, their eyes filled with mockery and disdain. Lily pushed her untouched plate away and stood up. I'm going to my room, she mumbled. I need some time to think. As she climbed the stairs, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was at a crossroads. The decision she made about prom felt somehow bigger than just one high school dance. Felt like a choice between hiding from the world and facing it head-on, between letting her bullies win and reclaiming her life. What Lily couldn't possibly know, as she curled up on her bed with her turbulent thoughts, was that forces were already in motion that would make her prom night unforgettable in ways she could never have imagined. The universe, it seemed, had plans for Lily Chen, plans that involved leather, prom, and the roar of 120 motorcycles. The week leading up to prom passed in a blur of anxiety and indecision for Lily. Each day at school felt like running a gauntlet, with whispers and stares following her through the hallway. Megan and her clique had been suspiciously quiet since the accident. Their silence was almost worse than their previous taunts. Lily could feel their eyes on her, calculating and cold, and she wondered what new torment they might be planning. It was during lunch on Wednesday, just 3 days before prom. Things came to a head. Lily was sitting alone at her usual table in the far corner of the cafeteria when a shadow fell across her tray. Looking up, she found herself face to face with Megan Collins. Megan was everything Lily wasn't: tall, blonde, and effortlessly popular. Her perfectly made-up face wore an expression of practiced concern. Hey Lily, she said, her voice syrupy sweet. I just wanted to check if you're coming to prom on Saturday. Everyone's been wondering. Lily's heart raced. She knew this wasn't a friendly inquiry. I haven't decided yet, she managed to stammer out. Megan's eyes flickered to the scar on Lily's face, a hint of satisfaction in her gaze. Oh well, you should totally come. I mean, it's not like that little scratch is that noticeable, and I'm sure you could cover it up with makeup or something. Casual cruelty of Megan's words hit Lily like a physical blow. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Megan leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a stage whisper. Of course, if you're worried about not having a date, I'm sure we could find someone willing to take you. Maybe one of the AV club guys? They're probably desperate enough. Laughter erupted from the nearby tables where Megan's friends sat watching the exchange. Lily felt her face burn with humiliation. She grabbed her backpack and fled the cafeteria, Megan's parting words ringing in her ears. See you at prom, Lily. It'll be a night to remember. Lily ran blindly through the school halls, tears blurring her vision. She burst through the doors to the parking lot, gulping in the fresh air. Without thinking, she headed for the street, intent on walking home, school be damned. She was so focused on putting distance between herself and the school, she didn't notice the motorcycle until it pulled up beside her. The deep rumble of the engine startled her out of her daze. "Whoa there, kid. You okay?" a gruff voice asked. Lily looked up to see a man, mountain of a biker, looking down at her with concern. He was easily in his 60s, with a long gray beard and arms covered in tattoos. Despite his intimidating appearance, there was kindness in his eyes. "I'm fine," Lily mumbled, wiping at her tears. Just heading home." The biker's eyes narrowed. "In the middle of the school day? Wearing that?" He nodded at her backpack. Lily shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how suspicious she must look. "It's complicated." The man nodded sagely. "Ain't it always? Look, I don't mean to pry, but you seem like you could use a friend right about now. Name's Frank. Frank Grizzly Pearson." Despite herself, Lily felt a small smile tug at her lips. "Grizzly?" Frank chuckled. "Yeah, well, spend enough time looking like this," he gestured to his impressive beard, "and nicknames tend to stick. What's your name, kid?" Lily Chen." Recognition flickered in Frank's eyes. "Chen, you wouldn't happen to be Robert Chen's daughter, would you?" Lily's eyes widened in surprise. "You know my dad?" Frank's face broke into a wide grin. "Know him? Hell, your old man saved my life back in the day. We served together in the Gulf. He ever tell you about the time he dragged my sorry ass out of a burning Humvee?" Lily shook her head, stunned. Her father rarely talked about his time in the military. Frank's expression softened. "Yeah, that sounds like Bob. Never one to brag. Look, Lily, I don't know what's got you so upset, but I do know that running away ain't the answer. How about I give you a ride home and we can talk about it?" Every instinct told Lily to decline, to keep walking. But something in Frank's kind eyes and the connection to her father made her pause. I guess that would be okay." Frank beamed. "All right then, hop on and hold tight." As Lily settled onto the back of Frank's massive motorcycle, her arms wrapped nervously around his waist, she felt a strange sense of calm descend over her. The roar of the engine and the wind in her face seemed to blow away some of the hurt and anger she'd been carrying. By the time they pulled up in front of her house, Lily found herself pouring out the whole story to Frank. The years of bullying, accident, her fears about prom. Frank listened silently, his face growing increasingly grim. As Lily finished her tale, Frank turned to face her, his eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and determination. "Lily, what those kids did to you, it ain't right. And the fact that they're still making your life miserable? That stops now." Lily shook her head sadly. "I appreciate that, Mr. Pearson, but there's nothing anyone can do. Megan's dad is on the school board, and her family has a lot of influence in town. They always get away with it." Frank's jaw set in a hard line. "Maybe they have before, but not this time. Lily, how would you feel about having some backup at that prom of yours?" Lily looked at him in confusion. "Backup? What do you mean?" A slow smile spread across Frank's face. "Let's just say I know a few folks who take a real dim view of bullies. Folks who'd be more than happy to make sure you get the prom night you deserve." As understanding dawned on Lily, a mixture of excitement and anxiety bubbled up in her chest. "You mean bikers? Like you?" Frank nodded. "Exactly like me. We may look rough around the edges, but we've got hearts of gold. And we take care of our own. Your dad's family, which makes you family too." For the first time in months, Lily felt a glimmer of hope. The idea of walking into prom with a group of intimidating bikers at her back was both thrilling and terrifying. The thought of seeing Megan's face when she realized her planned humiliation had backfired? That was priceless. "I'd have to talk to my parents," Lily said hesitantly. Frank grinned. "Of course. In fact, why don't you go on inside and fill them in? I've got a few calls to make." As Lily walked towards her front door, her mind racing with possibilities, she heard Frank's voice behind her. "Oh, and Lily, make sure you've got that prom dress ready. You're going to need it." For the first time since the accident, Lily felt a genuine smile spread across her face. Maybe, just maybe, prom night wouldn't be a disaster after all. In fact, it might turn out to be the most unforgettable night of her life. For all the right reasons. Little did Lily know that Frank's idea of backup was about to exceed her wildest expectations. setting in motion a chain of events that would not only change her life, but shake the very foundations of Oak Ridge High. The next 2 days passed in a whirlwind of activity and emotion for Lily. After her parents got over their initial shock at Frank's proposal, and a long, heartfelt phone call between Robert and his old war buddy, they threw their full support behind the plan. Grace spent hours altering Lily's prom dress to ensure it fit perfectly, while Robert made mysterious phone calls, a glint of excitement in his eyes that Lily hadn't seen in years. At school, Lily kept her head down, avoiding Megan and her clique as much as possible. The anticipation of what was to come gave her strength, but she was determined not to give away any hint of the surprise that awaited on prom night. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. Lily awoke to the sound of distant rumbling, like far-off thunder. As she rubbed the sleep from her eyes, the rumbling grew louder. Curious, she went to her window and pulled back the curtains. Her jaw dropped. Lining both sides of her quiet suburban street were motorcycles. Dozens of them. And more were arriving by the minute. Bikers of all shapes and sizes were dismounting, their leather vests adorned with patches and insignia Lily didn't recognize. In the midst of it all, looking like a general surveying his troops, stood Frank. Lily raced downstairs, still in her pajamas, and flung open the front door. The roar of engines and the chatter of deep voices filled the air. Neighbors were peeking out of windows and doors, expressions ranging from curiosity to alarm. Frank spotted Lily and waved her over. As she approached, still in a daze, grinned broadly. "Morning, Princess. Hope we didn't wake you too early. The boys were just so excited to meet you, they couldn't wait to get started." "Frank," Lily said, her voice barely audible over the noise. "What? How? There must be 100 bikes here." Frank's chest puffed out with pride. 120, to be exact. Called in a few favors from some old friends. Turns out, a lot of folks feel pretty strongly about standing up to bullies. As if on cue, a massive biker with arms like tree trunks approached. His vest identified him as Tiny. "This the little lady we're escorting tonight, Grizzly?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Frank nodded. "Sure is, Tiny. Lily, meet Tiny. Don't let the name fool you. Got the biggest heart of anyone I know." Tiny bent down to shake Lily's hand, engulfing it entirely in his massive paw. "It's an honor, Miss Lily. We're going to make sure you have the best night of your life." Tears welled up in Lily's eyes as biker after biker came to introduce themselves. There was Duchess, a statuesque woman with silver hair and a regal bearing. Pops, an elderly man who looked old enough to be Lily's grandfather, but whose eyes twinkled with mischief. Spike, a young man not much older than Lily himself, his arms covered in colorful tattoos. Each of them had a kind word for Lily, promise of support, a look of determination in their eyes. It was overwhelming, this outpouring of support from complete strangers. As the morning wore on, the Chen's front yard became a hub of activity. Bikers set up grills for an impromptu barbecue. Someone produced a sound system, and soon the air was filled with classic rock. Neighbors, initially wary, began to venture out, drawn by the festive atmosphere and the mouth-watering smell of grilling burgers. Lily found herself at the center of it all, surrounded by her new leather-clad guardian. They listened intently as she shared more details about her experiences with Megan and the others. With each story, the bikers' expressions grew more determined. "Don't you worry, sweetheart," Duchess said, patting Lily's hand. "By the time we're done, those mean girls won't know what hit them." As the afternoon progressed, Grace emerged from the house, Lily's altered prom dress draped carefully over her arm. "It's time to start getting ready, honey," called. The female bikers immediately volunteered to help. Soon, Lily found herself in her room, surrounded by a group of tough-looking women who turned out to have surprising skills in hair and makeup. Duchess took charge, her fingers deftly braiding sections of Lily's long black hair into an intricate updo. "You've got beautiful hair, darling," she murmured as she worked. "We're going to make sure everyone sees how gorgeous you are, inside and out." Another biker, who went by Pixie, despite being nearly 6 feet tall, worked on Lily's makeup. She had a gentle touch and an artist's eye, using concealer and contouring to minimize the appearance of Lily's scar without hiding it completely. "Your scar is part of who you are," Pixie explained as she worked. "We're not hiding it. We're just making sure it's not the first thing people see. They're going to see you, Lily. Real you." As the transformation progressed, Lily felt a growing sense of confidence. These women, with their tough exteriors and hearts of gold, were showing her a kind of acceptance and support she'd never experienced before. Finally, it was time for the dress. As Lily slipped into the emerald green gown, carefully altered by her mother to fit her perfectly, a hush fell over the room. "Oh, honey," Duchess breathed, her eyes misty. "You look absolutely stunning." Lily turned to look in the full-length mirror and gasped. The girl staring back at her was a stranger, radiant, confident, beautiful. The scar was still visible, but somehow it didn't seem to matter anymore. It was just another part of her, like her almond-shaped eyes or the tiny mole on her left cheek. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. It was Robert, looking dapper in a suit. "There's someone here to see you, Lily," said, his voice thick with emotion. Curious, Lily made her way downstairs, her biker entourage following close behind. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, she saw Frank standing in the entryway. But it wasn't Frank who caught her attention. Standing next to him, looking nervous but determined, was a young man Lily recognized from school. His name was Ethan, quiet boy from her AP English class. He was holding a corsage box and wearing a suit that matched perfectly with Lily's dress. Frank stepped forward, a twinkle in his eye. "Lily, I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of finding you a date for the evening. Ethan here is the grandson of one of my old riding buddies. He's a good kid and he'd be honored to escort you to prom. If that's okay with you, of course." Lily looked at Ethan, who gave her a shy smile. "Hi, Lily," he said softly. "You look beautiful. I've always wanted to ask you out, but I never had the courage. When my grandpa told me about what was happening, I knew I had to be here." For a moment, Lily was speechless. Then a warm smile spread across her face. "I'd be honored, Ethan. Thank you." As Ethan slipped the corsage on her wrist, Lily felt a surge of excitement. This wasn't at all how she had imagined her prom night, but somehow it was turning out to be so much better than she could have ever dreamed. Outside, the rumble of motorcycle engines grew louder. Frank grinned. "All right, folks, it's showtime. Let's give Oak Ridge High a prom night they'll never forget." As Lily stepped out onto her front porch, arm in arm with Ethan and surrounded by her biker guardians, she knew that whatever happened next, her life would never be the same. The night was young, and the adventure was just beginning. The roar of 120 motorcycles echoed through the streets of Oak Ridge as Lily's extraordinary prom procession made its way towards the high school. Lily and Ethan rode in a sleek, vintage convertible borrowed from one of the bikers, surrounded on all sides by their leather-clad escort. As they cruised down Main Street, people stopped and stared. Some cheered, others gaped in astonishment. Lily felt like a princess in a very unconventional fairy tale, and for the first time in months, she held her head high, unashamed and unafraid. Ethan, still somewhat in awe of the situation, leaned in close. "Lily," he said, just loud enough to be heard over the engines, "I just want you to know, I think you're the bravest person I've ever met. What you've been through, and the way you're facing it, it's incredible." Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She squeezed his hand, grateful for his presence and his kindness. As they approached Oak Ridge High, Lily's heart began to race. Parking lot was already filled with limos and cars, students in glittering dresses and sharp tuxedos milling about. The sound of the approaching motorcycle convoy drew everyone's attention. Frank, leading the procession, pulled up to the entrance first. He dismounted and stood at attention, creating a path for Lily's car. One by one, the other bikers followed suit, forming an honor guard that stretched from the parking lot to the gym doors. As the convertible came to a stop, Frank stepped forward to open Lily's door. A hush fell over the gathered students as Lily emerged, radiant in her emerald gown. Ethan hurried around to offer her his arm, and together they began to walk down the path created by the bikers. Lily could hear the whispers, see the wide-eyed stares. For once, they didn't bother her. She was too focused on the love and support radiating from her unusual escorts. As they reached the gym doors, Lily turned to face the bikers. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying in the sudden quiet. "All of you. I'll never forget this." Frank stepped forward, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. You go show 'em what you're made of, princess. We'll be right here if you need us." With a deep breath, Lily turned and entered the gym, Ethan by her side. The prom was in full swing, the dance floor crowded with students moving to the beat of the latest pop hit. For a moment, no one noticed their entrance. Then, like a wave, awareness spread through the room. Conversations halted mid-sentence, heads turned, and the music seemed to fade into the background. Lily felt the weight of every gaze. She refused to shrink under the attention. From across the room, Lily spotted Megan and her group. The look of shock on their faces was almost comical. Megan's mouth hung open, her carefully applied lipstick a perfect O of surprise. Before Megan could recover her composure, Mr. Thompson, the principal, approached Lily and Ethan. "Miss Chen, Mr. Garrett," he said, his voice a mixture of confusion and concern. I couldn't help but notice your rather dramatic entrance. Is everything all right?" Lily smiled, a genuine, confident smile that transformed her face. "Everything is perfect, Mr. Thompson. I hope you don't mind, but I brought a few friends to help celebrate." As if on cue, Frank appeared in the doorway, his imposing figure drawing every eye in the room. "Evening, folks," said, his gravelly voice carrying easily over the murmur of the crowd. "Don't mind us. We're just here to make sure everyone has a good time. A safe, respectful good time." His eyes flickered meaningfully towards Megan and her group. Mr. Thompson, clearly out of his depth, merely nodded. "Well, as long as they remain outside, I suppose it's fine. Enjoy your evening, Miss Chen." As the principal retreated, the spell of silence broke. The DJ, sensing the need to dispel the tension, started up a new song, a classic rock ballad that had several of the bikers outside nodding in approval. Ethan turned to Lily, extending his hand. "May I have this dance?" he asked, a shy smile on his face. Lily took his hand, allowing him to lead her to the dance floor. As they began to sway to the music, he saw other couples joining them, the normal rhythm of the prom reasserting itself. Throughout the night, Lily found herself at the center of attention, but not in the way she had feared. Students she had never spoken to before approached her, complimenting her dress, asking about her biker escort, and even apologizing for not standing up for her in the past. Even some of Megan's former supporters came up to Lily, their faces a mixture of shame and admiration. "We're so sorry, Lily," one girl said, her eyes brimming with tears. "What we did, what we let happen, it wasn't right." Lily, feeling a strength she hadn't known she possessed, found it in her heart to forgive. "Thank you," she said softly. "That means a lot to me." As the night wore on, Lily danced with Ethan, laughed with new friends, and even ventured outside to share a dance with Frank, much to the delight of the gathered bikers. It was nearing midnight when Megan finally approached Lily. The queen bee of Oak Ridge High looked uncharacteristically uncertain, her usual confidence shaken. "Lily," Megan began, voice barely above a whisper, I don't know what to say. I've been horrible to you. Unforgivable. I let jealousy and insecurity turn me into a monster, and you paid the price. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm so sorry." Lily studied Megan's face, seeing genuine remorse in her eyes. For a moment, she was tempted to lash out, to make Megan feel a fraction of the pain she had endured. But as she opened her mouth to speak, she realized that the anger and fear that had consumed her for so long were gone. "Megan," Lily said, her voice firm but not unkind, "what you did was cruel and wrong. It's going to take a long time for me to trust you, if I ever can, but I forgive you. Not for your sake, but for mine. I'm not going to let what happened define me or control my life anymore." Tears spilled down Megan's cheeks as she nodded, accepting Lily's words. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her shoulders slumped in defeat and shame. As Megan retreated, Ethan appeared at Lily's side. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Lily took a deep breath, then smiled. "You know what? I really am. For the first time in a long time, I feel free." Final song of the night began to play, a slow, sweet melody that had couples gravitating towards each other. Ethan held out his hand, and Lily took it without hesitation. As they swayed together on the dance floor, Lily rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. She could see Frank and some of the other bikers watching from the doorway, pride shining in their eyes. She thought of her parents at home, anxiously awaiting her return to hear about every detail of the night. In that moment, surrounded by newfound friends, unexpected allies, and the promise of a brighter future, Lily Chen felt truly beautiful, inside and out. The scars, both physical and emotional, would always be a part of her. Now, she knew they were marks of her strength, not her weakness. As the final notes of the song faded away, Lily knew that this night, this incredible, unforgettable prom night, was not an ending, was a beginning, and she couldn't wait to see what came next. The weeks following prom night brought changes to Oak Ridge High that no one could have predicted. Lily's triumphant entrance, backed by her biker guardians, had done more than just salvage her prom experience. It had sparked a revolution of kindness and acceptance, swept through the school like wildfire. On the Monday after prom, Lily walked into school with her head held high, Ethan by her side. The whispers and stares that greeted her were different now, filled with admiration rather than pity or cruelty. Students who had never spoken to her before went out of their way to say hello, compliment her bravery. But the most significant change was in the school's social dynamics. The rigid hierarchy that had allowed bullying to flourish began to crumble. Students who had once been invisible found their voices, inspired by Lily's example. The popular crowd, with Megan at its center, seemed unsure of their place in this new order. Megan herself underwent a transformation that surprised everyone, Lily most of all. True to her word at prom, Megan seemed determined to make amends. She approached Lily one day after class, her usual entourage noticeably absent. "Lily," Megan said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "I was wondering if you'd be willing to help me with something. I want to start an anti-bullying campaign at school, but I know I'm the last person who should be leading it. Would you consider working with me on this?" Lily was taken aback. She studied Megan's face, searching for any sign of insincerity, found only earnest hope. After a moment's consideration, she nodded. "Okay, Megan, I'll help, but on one condition. We include everyone in this, especially the kids who've been left out or picked on in the past." Megan's face lit up with relief and determination. "Absolutely. Thank you, Lily. I promise I won't let you down." Over the next few months, Lily and Megan worked tirelessly on their anti-bullying initiative. They organized workshops, brought in speakers, and created a peer support system for students who were struggling. The campaign gained momentum, drawing attention from local media and even catching the eye of state education officials. Ethan, who had started as Lily's prom date, became a constant presence in her life. Their shared experience had forged a bond that deepened into a sweet, supportive relationship. Together, they became a power couple of sorts, using their newfound influence to champion inclusivity and kindness. Frank and his biker friends didn't disappear after prom night. They became regular visitors to Oak Ridge, participating in school events and mentoring at-risk youth. The sight of leather-clad bikers reading to elementary school kids or teaching teenagers basic motorcycle maintenance became a common and beloved part of town life. As for Lily herself, the confident young woman who had emerged on prom night continued to flourish. She spoke at school assemblies, sharing her story and encouraging others to stand up against bullying. Her scar, once a source of shame, became a symbol of resilience that inspired others to embrace their own differences. 1 year after that fateful prom night, Lily stood on the stage at graduation, preparing to deliver the valedictorian speech. As she looked out over the sea of faces, her fellow students, teachers, parents, and a rowdy bunch of bikers cheering from the back, she felt a surge of emotion. "A year ago," Lily began, her voice strong and clear, "I stood in front of a mirror, afraid to show my face to the world. I thought my scars, both the ones you could see and the ones you couldn't, defined me. I was ready to hide, to give up, to let the bullies win." She paused, her eyes finding Frank in the crowd. He gave her an encouraging nod. But then something extraordinary happened. A group of unlikely guardian angels showed me that strength comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply show up, stand tall, and refuse to be beaten down. Lily's gaze swept across the audience, lingering on the faces that had been part of her journey. Ethan, Megan, her parents, her teachers, her biker family. What I learned, what we all learned, is that kindness is not weakness. Compassion is not naivety. And our differences, our scars, our struggles, they don't diminish us. They make us stronger, more empathetic, more human. As Lily continued her speech, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. She spoke of resilience, community, of the power of standing up for oneself and for others. But mostly she spoke of hope. As we leave Oak Ridge High today, we carry with us more than just diplomas. We carry the knowledge that we have the power to change our world, one act of kindness at a time. We've seen it happen here, in our school, in our town. Imagine what we can do out there in the bigger world. As Lily concluded her speech to thunderous applause, she knew that this too was not an ending, but a beginning. The lessons learned, the bonds forged, the changes made, they would ripple out far beyond the walls of Oak Ridge High. In the years that followed, Lily's story continued to inspire. She went on to college, studying psychology with a focus on adolescent development and anti-bullying initiative. Ethan was by her side, pursuing a degree in education with dreams of becoming a teacher who could make a difference in students' lives. Megan, true to her word, continued her journey of redemption. She became an advocate for mental health awareness, openly sharing her own struggles with insecurity and the damage caused by bullying behavior. Frank and his biker friends expanded their mentorship program, partnering with schools across the state to provide support for at-risk youth. Their leather vests and rumbling motorcycles became a symbol of protection and kindness for a new generation. And in Oak Ridge, a small town that had learned big lessons about the power of acceptance and standing up for what's right, a new tradition was born. Each year on prom night, a parade of motorcycles would escort students to the dance, a reminder that everyone deserves to feel special, protected, and proud of who they are. Lily Chen's journey from bullied teen to beacon of hope had transformed not just her life, the lives of countless others. Her scars, both physical and emotional, had faded but never disappeared completely. And that was okay. They were a part of her story, testament to her strength and resilience. As Lily stood on the steps of her college dormitory, preparing to start the next chapter of her life, she thought back to that scared girl staring at herself in the bathroom mirror. She wished she could tell that girl that everything would be okay. More than okay. That life had a way of surprising you, bringing light to even the darkest moments. With a smile, Lily adjusted her backpack and stepped forward into her future, ready for whatever adventures awaited. Behind her, she could almost hear the distant rumble of motorcycles, a reminder that she would never truly walk alone.